Welcome to another edition of Brain Balance Live. I am Jen. I am a fellow Brain Balance mom, and I am joined each week with Heather. As you can see, her handle there is at the Hidden Churn. Heather is just a wealth of knowledge and helps give us tips each week just to help make our life as parents a little easier to bear. Heather, you make my life so much better. How are you today?
Well, good. Well, that makes my day. That makes my day right there. I mean, that's that I have been surrounded by some of the most amazing families. I mean, people are just flooding to the centers, and they just wow me. I just think parents are heroes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for continuing to do the work that you do. Heather is a therapist. She's a board certified cognitive specialist. She's also been a National Autism Summit speaker. Obviously, from all of those things, you can tell that she is a wealth of knowledge, but she is also a huge advocate for our Brain Balance program. So Heather, just quickly tell everybody what research has been proven to show how well these programs work recently.
Well, Harvard Medical School released a 10-year study on our program showing all kinds of symptomatic changes in attention, emotional regulation, lots of critical thinking skills, but they also saw new neural pathways that we form. And that's why 10 years later, they say, yes, it sticks because we're not just teaching strategies, we're actually architecturally improving the brain. And Cambridge Brain Sciences said, yes, you get impressive improvement with all 12 areas of executive function we look at. And the Journal of Mental Health and Clinical Psychology reported the very significant improvements we get in mood and emotional well-being and decreased anxiety and decreased depression and so forth.
Yes. And it's things that we already knew because we've been through the program with our son. But it's really nice to have that validated.
I mean, when Harvard talks or Cambridge Brain Sciences, people listen,
That's right.
These peer-reviewed articles, yeah, it doesn't hurt. It's a good feeling.
So what are we going to be talking about today? I think we're having a little celebration.
We are. We talk about these struggles each week, and I always talk about how the strengths often mask struggles and struggles mask strengths. And I'm like, let's talk about the positive side of neurodiversity today, because so often we're trying to, troubleshoot and problem solve, and that's still very important. But let's talk about the gifts that may not be as evident, and yes. Because the way we talk about this with our kids, and this is for adults too, the narratives that we have about ourselves, parents' narratives and teachers' narratives become the students' personal narratives, and then we can carry these into adulthood. We have struggles, and we don't realize the opposing side of that. There is a strength that may be hidden, but it is there when used correctly.
It is so true. I was really excited when I saw the topic of the show today because Heather talks a lot, if you haven't seen the show before, about keeping that positive reinforcement going, and I was so excited to kind of reboot myself on strengths that I might be taking for granted.
Yes. I did a show over a year ago about twice exceptional gifted students, one of the most absolutely misunderstood populations there is. And of course, each one of those individuals is individual. I mean, they don't all play out the same. But we have so many kids who can be gifted in some areas and then have it's called a learning disability. I like learning difference in other areas. And oftentimes if you take your kids, and I'm not sitting here trying to tell somebody to go get their kids in gifted programs. That's not the point of this. But if your kids are, they are zoned out, they're bored because certain classes are too easy for them. And then the other ones are too hard. If a class is too hard, well, they must not be applying themselves because they're so smart, and that's just not the case. Yeah. They probably have a set of strengths and struggles. And then if you get them tested, so many times I hear parents say they just barely fell short, of the gifted program. Well, what happens is often that it depends on the district, the state. There are a lot of variables here, but a lot of times all of the realms get averaged together. And if they would look at individual averages, they would see there is a cognitive gift here. There is a creativity gift. There are so many layers of giftedness, and then it gets missed. And then I don't relate to the run of the mill, the average student that we all think of. What's the average student? I don't relate to the ones who are just purely gifted. I don't relate to the ones who are needing more of the resource support. They need both.
Yeah.
And so there is a much higher propensity of dropping out, of getting in trouble, doing drugs, having difficulty keeping jobs, because they do not see all of that. It's a combination of strengths and struggles that makes up all of us. The difference is theirs are more pronounced. We all have these, but they know how to play well together. But when you have extreme gifts and a very substantial struggle, instead of understanding that, it often appears to be laziness, apathy, task avoidance, just being difficult. And I've said this before, but it bears repeating in this context. The brain registers perpetual boredom as stress. And then the emotional brain takes over, and then they're not attending, they're being impulsive and so forth. So talking through this, the words we use matter. I mean,
yes. Yeah.
That whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. That's just, I do not find that to be true.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that, because my son is so good at music. He just loves playing piano. And he's really actually just like exceptionally good. He's constantly asking me, Mom, am I a child prodigy? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, but am I like Mozart? Like Mozart was like really smart. Like, am I like Mozart? And I'm wondering if what you're talking about is playing a part here. He's trying to associate himself with a group of like exceptionally gifted musicians so that he can like group himself in there and like establish himself.
Yes. Twice exceptional kids often ask many, many questions. I mean, kids of all ages do. And we've talked before about how when kids ask why or, other questions, sometimes I know we're busy, life is frenetic, and I already answer that because I said so. It's so easy to come up with these sort of rote responses and even frustrated responses. Understandably, you're like, second verse, same as the first. Why? But if we keep in mind that our kids are seeking to understand the world, they're seeking to understand themselves. When we take the time to answer these questions or to say, well, why do you think it is? And then engage in a conversation, have them think for themselves, man, are we connecting dots? And then learning becomes more engaging. When we say, because I said so, a lot of times there's going to be some rebellion that goes along with that. These kids have a need to learn, but they may want to learn in the realm they want to learn in, or, this assignment, they may put their own spin on it. And that doesn't go well in a grading system. But keep in mind, these same kids are going to be running the world. And but if we build them up and help them see themselves for who they are and not based on a test score. I mean, they matter to a certain degree to go to next level on what their goals are. But we've got to get them engaged. And we do that by engaging back with them when they are asking questions. They're seeking understanding. Sometimes it can even look like they're being defiant. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm saying it's not always defiance or not always 100% defiance. When they say why, they may not be questioning your authority. They may be, I'm really trying to connect a dot. Their delivery may not be fantastic. And then it really causes that issue. They can get really frustrated with, man, why are we reviewing this information? Like, I got it the first time. What's wrong with the rest of the class? They have other sources of frustration that we may not even think about.
Yeah, totally. So while we're talking about our little topic today of celebrating them, how are you breaking it down in our talk today?
Well, I wanted to really, this is not an all-inclusive list, but think of some of these words where it says problem focus that we may use to describe our kids. And if you are seeking help and you're talking to a professional, you are getting the point across. But we need to really even change in our own minds the way we talk about kids. Because if we believe, okay, we know they're bossy, but in front of them, we're going to say they're a natural leader, visionary. It's not going to stick, and you're still going to come out with the word bossy, probably. If they have, it's really about changing the narrative. We're not pretending that there's something they're not. But instead of, look at all of these alternatives for defiant, hold strong beliefs. They're determined. They're bold. They're willing to make their voice heard. Advocacy is huge. Self-advocacy and advocacy for those who cannot advocate for themselves. Demanding. They know what they want. There's a strength in that. Dramatic can also be passionate, expressive, fearful. We want caution on an appropriate level. Fearful or caution is also going to help prevent them from making impulsive decisions. And impulsivity is not always bad if there is reason involved. You know, it can be spontaneity. It can be that they have good instincts in a certain field. So inflexible, maybe they are very organized. They like predictability. They also might be very accountable and responsible. You know, oppositional. They don't go with the flow. They may not give in to peer pressure because they are going to take a stand and they're going to share their perspective. They're not the yes man for somebody. You know, you get the idea.
I feel like I need to print this out and just hang it on the wall all over my house, because every one of these could be used in my household.
Yeah. And, you know, on the left there, it's like, it's not just what we say to our kids, it's how they take it in and interpret it. And so it doesn't mean that them being disrespectful and defiant is okay. And I'm not going to do anything about this because, okay, they're determined, the hill turn release. That's a good, it's not that we have to live under this artifice. It is that what genuine compliments can we give that relate to what they might be using as a weakness that can also be a strength when it is filtered and used correctly. Yeah. So, you know, impulsivity is a big one. Let's just say, you know what, you have such a fun-hearted nature. You're spontaneous. You go with the flow. Your friends want to do something you weren't planning on doing. You're like, okay, and you jump right in. Is there ever a time when you jump into things that it doesn't work out well? And you know, if they can't think of anything, I wonder about when you said such and such to your sister. You know, you jumped right in and didn't think about it. Did that turn out as well? Why not? What are the differences? You are helping them understand both sides of the equation along the same trait.
Yeah.
Every trait is on virtually any trait I can think of is on a continuum, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's really about praising a characteristic that is admirable when used correctly, and look for those opportunities. Think about what are your top 3 concerns with your kids. Yeah. And think about some of these words or similar words that you or others might use with them. And if you do, it's okay. We do the best we can until we know better than we do better. So this isn't beating up on Parents' Day. This is like, let's think about this from a different perspective.
I love the idea of this because I feel like once you have these established in your mind and you're able to, it's hard if you took apart the computer screw by screw. That was so curious. Like, I'll bet you thought you could fix it.
Yes. Yeah. That's
no, you know what I'm saying though? It's hard not to get angry in those moments. Yes. But even in that instance, I can see that there was actually a positive thing being done. They weren't trying to ruin the computer.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Here's the thing. This doesn't need to be a script. It has to feel real. It has to be genuine, but it's about really parents and teachers thinking about this and not looking for what is the best possible case scenario of this indication.
You can totally picture my son taking apart an entire computer, can't you?
Yeah, that's just mind-boggling. I can't imagine. It's not about artifice. It is about truly think about if your child is impulsive, they are also spontaneous. Mm-hmm. What are some moments when that has gone well and when it did not cause harm? Same thing with any of these. Be real, because it's not about just making stuff up. Now, if you've never thought about it this way, pause and think about this and just think about talking about the positive side of that, but also then talk about the negative side. You're not accusing them of anything. You're helping them understand that every trait, characteristic, struggle we have comes with an opposing strength, almost always.
Yeah.
And helping them figure out the situational factors that make spontaneity appropriate, impulsivity not appropriate. What are the differentiators there? And this is growing such cognitive flexibility. We talked before about Dr. Ross Green and his book, The Explosive Child. And I say this all the time. He's just probably more eloquent than I am about, kids do well if they can most of the time. Now, over years and years of struggle, sometimes they give up and they just start living up to what they and others believe of them. They've gotten a lot of, negative messaging, maybe at school, from friends, from other parents, whatever. So, but think back to before that was the case, if it's already gotten to the point, and if they are doing that, it is because they probably have such a negative self-image. We don't want to turn these into fake positive affirmations. On our self-esteem show, we talked about how if kids are really down on themselves and we just say, repeat after me, I am beautiful. And it doesn't mean they're going to believe it. In fact, now they're saying, now you're lying to me. But maybe they like their smile and they can say, I have a nice smile. That's believable. And then you're moving it from negative to neutral to more positive over time. We're not trying to come up with some rah, rah, hey, this is all false. These are real things. There are real strengths and there are real struggles. Help them know the difference. When you role play, when you talk about these things in advance, when you ask open-ended yet targeted questions about their day, you can be talking about these in the moment so that it's fresh. This situation happened. Was that spontaneous or impulsive? Because you're, whatever. And then why? And really have them think through that stuff. This is just such a great way. It's metacognition. They're thinking about their thinking. They're thinking about their actions. And that is a huge difference between impulsivity and spontaneity. Did they have self-awareness when they did it? What was there any reasoning involved? What were the stakes on each of these choices? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even on, aside from just these types of, we just do not want to ascribe negative personality or character labels to neurodevelopmental differences. We want to support the struggle and celebrate the strength. It does not mean we don't need to work on impulsivity or defiance or inattention. It means that we are helping them see the whole picture and not just the negative. We talk about growing perspective. We are expanding our perspective, kind of using the wide angle lens instead of the telescopic view. Yeah. Even if it comes to battles about bedroom is messy, for example, instead of saying, you're so messy, clean up your room, you can say, you know what? There is so much research about how messiness is tied to creativity. You are so creative, and talk about things in that realm. Are there any times when things get this messy that it kind of interferes with stuff? No? Oh, remember that time we didn't get to the baseball game till the third inning? Apply it to real things. So it's also situationally based. You've already talked about, and maybe when you know that messiness is tied to, there is a lot of research on that. Maybe you can ease up on what your expectations are. Is there an area of the house where that is their art room? They need to put the lids back on paint. Why? Because they dry out, etc. But are there areas where you can let it go, and then the other areas they keep tidy that impact the rest of the family? It really can just sort of start softening what the expectations are in areas where they need to be free to explore. We must let them explore their interests. And when they explore their interests, just like when we've talked about with smart goal setting, and we have them set goals related to something they care about, then same thing, when they get to explore their interests, they are growing some lagging skills that are going to help with those areas of struggle. And they're really getting to know parts of themselves, so that other parts of themselves, so they do not feel defined by the struggles.
I love that, what you talked about. Can you talk a little bit about bringing these conversations up? I feel like it's really easy to blow up when something goes wrong. As a parent, it's very hard to keep your cool when something happens that does destroy your belongings or, create a bad situation. Is there any advice you would give to us when something like that does happen, what we can do in the moment? Because it sounds like we shouldn't be necessarily having this conversation in the heated moment when we are upset.
No, absolutely not. This goes back to, it is very important that we are the safe harbor for our children. It does not mean that parents are not entitled to their feelings. If you weren't frustrated about that, I'd be worried about you. I mean, that's frustrating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, they went into your purse, got something, lost it, whatever. I mean, whatever it is, they tore something up.
I once filled my parents' shoes with toothpaste.
What were you building a sculpture for them?
I did. I filled they came in the bathroom and I had filled all of their shoes with toothpaste.
Do you remember why you did that?
No.
Maybe you're like fresh breath, fresh shoes.
Maybe
you're like toothpaste should be in a shoe, not in a tube. I don't know.
I like the way it smells, and these stink. So
no, it is just very important. You are entitled to your feelings. It is self-care. Fine. If you need to take a time out, take a time out. It's important that it not feel that you are withholding love from kids when you're cooling down. So come up with a strategy, tag team with your significant other, the other parent, a grandma, something. But we must approach them calmly and take care of yourself in those moments. Then you can get back to your logical brain, because in that moment you're in your emotional brain, just like our kids get in their emotional brains. That is human nature. That is not many things wrong with you.
Yeah.
Take that time. Now you're back in your logical brain and ask yourself, what is the best possible interpretation of this? Were they actually trying to destroy my computer, or this is showing me they love hands-on and they are so good with technology. They want to know how things work. They're being, I've been begging for engagement, learning engagement, and this was it. Don't love the way they acted on it, but really ask yourselves these questions. And if you are so mad you can't get there, talk to the other parent and or a best friend or something. Talk through it. And we are not giving them a free pass. We do not want to punish kids for doing things that are the direct result of neurodiverse challenges, something that they really cannot help in this moment. But based on developmental age, not chronological age, it doesn't mean they don't face consequences. Facing the natural consequences of something they do is so much better than you imposing one on them, because then you're the bad guy. Whereas if they broke something and they need to fix it or pay for it, like if they threw something across the room in anger, they need to replace that lamp, save up their, of course, depending on how old they are and how expensive. I have cheap lamps. I know lamps like thousands of dollars. But it is a consequence that is a direct result. They caused this thing and now they're going to repair it. We don't always want to rescue them. And then you're not the bad guy. When we break things, we have to replace them. Yeah. I accidentally dropped a plate and I went and bought a new one, whatever.
Yeah.
So that removes you, that gives you a degree of separation from it.
Yeah.
But do you think it's not about pie in the sky and let's make something up so that we don't want to, not talk to our son the rest of the night? But it's about being real and really asking yourself, because he wasn't trying to destroy a computer. Right. But once you're both calm, ask him. Yeah, you can talk about why he did that, what was going on when he did that. Well, I love that you're creative and I love that you want to know how things work. But what do you think the problem is with you just taking this computer apart? We want to prompt them, have them fill in the blanks. It sticks better that way. You're being calm, so they're less likely to be defensive. Doesn't mean defensiveness is not going to happen at all. If they have really low self-esteem, they may blame somebody else. I'm sure nobody's ever had that experience.
Ooh.
Or make sure they're in their calm place too. If they are still in their fight or flight mode, they may even lie about it. Doesn't mean it's a moral issue. It means they are in fight or flight and they are in self-preservation mode.
Oh, that's a good reminder.
If they are in self-preservation mode, it needs to be when both people have calmed down. And keep in mind, usually parents calm down faster than kids. Yeah. And they may not even be escalated. If you're mad and you did a good job of escaping before you took it out on them and got your time to get back into your logical brain, they may be happy as a lark. Look what I did. Well, But if it's something where there's been an altercation, both sides need to calm down. And it does often take kids longer. But that's where you really get into these conversations about the difference between the good that you see in that. but what are some appropriate ways for you to practice without it being our computer that you took apart when Daddy needed this for work tonight?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that. That was such great information. Do we have more on this slide that we have not?
I don't think so. I wanted this to be a lighthearted conversation. I do want to tell you there have been so many organizations, and of course, I think the technology world has led with this. But there are more and more humongous, like S&P 500, big companies that are hiring neurodiverse individuals, and there have been studies done on this, and they are finding that, guess what? Neurodiverse individuals usually think outside the box. They're like, we need to change our hiring practices. You may have a neurodiverse individual who doesn't interview well, and so many of the things you think about, they're well spoken, and you're like, oh, this person overshares. They don't have good eye contact. I'm not going to hire them. They may be the absolute best person to take this product to the next level. Yeah. Innovation is huge for this century, right?
Yeah.
And they are finding better retention, much higher productivity, because it is an inclusive environment. Think about having mentors. Have your neurodiverse child mentor maybe a younger child, and have a mentor for your son or daughter who's neurodiverse, and give them opportunities where they don't feel like they're always the one. They do need support, still get to the root cause of struggles so that their strengths will shine even brighter, but give them opportunities to mentor others, because we all have a lot to learn from our neurodiverse youth and adults. We 100%. Need to think about how can we expand our world so that we don't expect people to fit in a box. Yeah. And the organizations who have done that are benefiting tremendously from doing so. It is not just a favor to neurodiverse. No, until we accept that there are many different versions of normal, the world is being held back, and all of these beautiful individuals are being held back from making their greatest contribution,
Yeah. That just gives me so much hope for the future and lifts me up. And I hope that if you've been watching at home, even if you're watching on the replay, that it's done the same for you. And I do want to say, please, please, please always drop your questions in the comments. Heather always comes back to look at these and answer people's questions. And sometimes it spurs us into another conversation. So we just love those questions. As you can see, these are all the ways that you can connect with Heather, and she definitely responds to her messages as well. Isn't that right, Heather?
I do, yes. I love it when I hear from people, and I always respond. So, and thank you to everyone who shared your time with us. Oh, I will say we are not back this week. Dr. Brian is on vacation, and then we won't be here on Monday because it's observance of the 4th of July.
Yep.
So I just want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July extended holiday weekend. Be sure to talk to your neurodiverse kids, all your kids, neurodiverse or not, about what this holiday means. That is engagement and learning too.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Heather. And we will see you guys same time, same place in 2 weeks. Thanks so much, Heather. I'll see you then.